Hi, everybody. Well, I was just floored last night watching Candace Owens' speech and the stuff about the Moonies. Now, the Moonies, I don't know much about the Moonies and the whole, I mean, I'd heard of them, but all of their religious stuff, I'm not really sure. However, one of my pending cases is against the director of the Washington Times, which was started by the Moonies, and he was a Moonies. Now, he was arrested, I believe it's 2012, we'll see that, for, I think, yeah, he was like online. It was a 13-year-old. Well, it was like a FBI agent or something, and he's trying to hook up with this 13 or 14-year-old. And he gets a sting operation. So he gets arrested for pedophilia. He went to prison. Now his wife was one of these she was one of these Korean mail order brides. And this is 1982, and they were in a mass wedding at Madison Square Garden in 1982. So the thing is with all of these honeypots, and I mean, we see it all over the place. I mean, I even see this as an expat with the French people, with the Spanish people. You know, the men who are marrying these foreigners, they do so because these foreign women, you know, they're social climbers and they're not going to say anything. Men can do anything they want, as amoral and illegal as they want. And these foreign women are not going to say anything because they don't care. They just, you know, they're marrying a meal ticket husband and they don't care. So, you know, all of these Korean mail order brides that came into into the United States in the 80s, that's no different. I mean, my brother, like his Philippine girlfriend, same can of worms. I mean, the girl is a stupid idiot. My sisters were always like, oh, you can't believe how stupid she is. And why would he be with somebody so stupid? I'm like, well, you guys castrated the poor kid. You know, all he does, I mean, he doesn't have any family. I'm like, well, have you looked at anything I've written? We're going on 20 years. No, I don't have time. He has no family. He's single. I mean, you know, like, you don't have any time? No, you're not interested. You're happy. You're more than happy that I've suffered like this. My kids have suffered. He even told me one time, if your kids, I mean, my sons, you know, my family, any member of my family or friends could go to the United States, excuse me, to Spain and say, look, your mom's worried sick about you. She can't come back because she barely made it out alive the first time. I mean, my poor children have almost 20 years. So all of these little ladies like Lauren, or the, what is it, Jenna Bush Hager, Meghan McCain, all of you little ladies who now have your children, I have been warning you, you pull this shit on us, all of us stay-at-home moms. Oh, it's just the luck of the draw, it's just the luck of the draw, go and jump off a bridge. Well, inciting suicide is against the law. And international conventions, human rights conventions, and under national laws. So, you know, all of the Cindy and Meghan McCain, I want to see in court. I mean, this gets into Arizona. I got so many freaking lawsuits, it's not even funny. And then we have, like, Baron Coleman. I contacted him. What does he do, though? He just blocks my phone calls. Okay, fine, Baron Coleman. I mean, you got 5 kids. Your trad wife? Huh. She's going to be up Schitt's Creek without a paddle when it's time to pay the piper. Y'all want to play hardball, but you don't know. Let's go into this. You don't know what the consequences of are going to be. You know, you keep on saying, well, you made your bed, you got to lie in it, you opted out of the out of the labor markets in the 80s and became a stupid trad wife. You made your bed, now lie in it. I'm like, well, the thing is I didn't become a stupid bimbo like all of your wives. So, it is what it is. So I guess we'll keep on going. So, anyway, yeah, here's a scoop for any of you podcasters or any of you journalists. One, go after, this gets into the Washington Times, the Moonies, all of these people within that cult, they need to be investigated. And I have a pending case. I mean, this Randall, his name was Randall Casseday, Casseday. You can Google him. He was arrested for pedophilia. So anyway, he was, when I got I forget if I was fired from one of the restaurants. I forget if it was by the black group that wanted to get rid of me, or if that was Casa the Boqueria. I forget. But anyway, I got fired for some stupid, I should have a lawsuit against the restaurant who fired me. And so Randall, what does he start doing? He starts walking around naked all over the place and leaving his door open. So every time I turn around, I'm seeing him buck naked in the bathroom, in his room. When I go into my room, he'd leave the door open a crack, and there was absolutely no way I couldn't see. I mean, I'd look away. I have photos. Now, so what happened when actually it was, because it had to have been before Bobby Kennedy's campaign, because in fact it was when Bobby Kennedy launched his campaign. And yeah, maybe this was it. Bobby Kennedy launched his campaign, and I supported Bobby Kennedy, so I got fired. And of course, I told my older sister, who's still alive, I said, what the is this asshole think that I'm gonna if I service him, he's gonna pay my rent? I mean, what does he expect? I'm gonna burst into his room and say, oh, I can't take it anymore. You're just so sexy. You're so sexy. I can't get over it. Like, let's have sex and you'll pay my rent. And my ex, he told me, he said, nobody gives a shit about you, and you're going to have to prostitute yourself in order to survive. For the past 20 years, I've lived in, rat-infested housing. I could barely keep a roof over my head with minimum wage jobs, and I keep on getting fired. I have 2 pending cases against the IMF Family Association, and then IMF Institute for Capacity Development. It would blow all of the international development community out of the water if I could get a lawyer. But no, none of the lawyers want to get involved. So just keep collecting names and names and names, whatever. I contacted Candace, in fact, about my work in the Feminist back in April. She's not interested. She's not interested. I'm really sorry for her. But, this is more important than just who killed Charlie Kirk. And let's figure out a way for all the podcasters to make a lot of money off of this thing. I'm really getting sick and tired of the podcasters blaming everybody for being gold diggers when that's exactly what they are. So here we go.
For lunch. Yeah. That's why I went with the thumbnail title, Don't F with Cats, because now we have to find Charlie Kirk's murderer, for those of you who watched that series. Now, according to Forbes, he also once threw a man into a bear cage after he had an argument with him at one of his restaurants. So, yeah, he had a colorful background indeed. Like I said, these people are gangsters. But in 1948, the very year that Israel became a nation, Cary Hezekiah died from cirrhosis of the liver, and his son, Jerry Falwell Sr., had an immediate radical conversion to Christianity. Bootlegging, trafficking, smuggling, be damned, because his business was now going to be the church, ministering. He became a televangelist, and he established Lynchburg College in 1971, which would eventually change its name to Liberty University that we know today. And yes, it is true, in 1979,
Now, Lynchburg, Virginia, that's all the area I forget if Lynchburg is Fauquier or Loudoun County or something, but that gets into the Mellon family, Olaf. See, Middleburg, um, and that's Loudoun County. Uh, this used to be up until probably the 70s, 80s, things started to change because, of course, all of these Robin Baron heiresses and heirs started spending down their fortunes. But the Mellons had their farm out there, huge. But this is a huge, huge enclave of the wealthiest WASP families and the robber barons and all of these wealthy families. So they dropped the ball, and looks what's happening in their backyard because they're not paying any attention.
Falwell Sr. was gifted a Learjet from the founder of the Likud party, then Prime Minister of Israel, Menachem Begin. Now, that's pretty nice of Israel. But I always am wondering, in exchange for what? Like, in exchange for what? Because that kind of reminds me about how Bibi Netanyahu wanted to take Turning Point USA to the next level. He offered to take Turning Point USA to the next level. Charlie Kirk said no. But apparently nobody in the mainstream media is interested in answering the question as to why he wanted to take Turning Point to USA to the next level. What does Israel have to do with young evangelicals, a young evangelical organization? Also, how? That's my other big question. How exactly was he planning to get that money into Turning Point USA? I'm assuming he wasn't going to write like a blank check from the Likud party. Surely he was going to accomplish that through other people and their organizations, because Israel never gets their hands dirty if they can avoid it. That's the lesson of yesterday, by the way. You employ Christians to do your dirty work. And I got another clue from a different email tip that I received regarding Liberty University. It reads, "Hi, Candace. I have some links that might be important for you in your investigation regarding connections between the Iran-Contra scandal and Liberty University." Now, to remind you, the Iran-Contra scandal was a trafficking scandal that involved our government, the CIA, of course, the Mossad. Jeffrey Epstein was involved in the Iran-Contra scandal. If the Mossad is to be believed, that's how they first brought him in.
Yeah, another person of interest who was involved in the Iran-Contra scandal was Brendan Sullivan, a lawyer in D.C. He defended Ollie North. Now, he was one of the first lawyers I contacted in 2009 when I got back to D.C., kind of because I saw, he defended Ollie North, and this is where we can go back to a lot of the problems within the courts, and it has to do with the war on drugs and everything. Of course, he just ignored me. He's been ignoring me all of these years. He and his entire law firm and all of these lobbyists in this town. Squire Patton Boggs is another. Can't remember Brendan Sullivan. He's down near Penn Quarter. So yeah, we got I don't know how many lawyers are in D.C., but as many lawyers as they are, we got lawsuits.
Running weapons through South America, and the CIA and the Mossad got caught involving. They were trying to control what was happening in South America. And they were arming people to take over countries. That's kind of what our CIA does. Anyways.
Sorry, I forgot. Brendan Sullivan, that's also, he's good friends with Carol Joint. Carol Joint, her husband, was the owner of Nathan's restaurant at the corner of Wisconsin and M. This was big watering hole in the 60s, 70s. All of the politicians hung out there. Well, when he died, she was a gold digger from Leesburg, I believe. So yeah, and she domestic violence and all of this stuff. So anyway, in 2012, I think she came out with The Innocent Spouse, a book. I went to her book signing and I said, look, there's a lot of stuff that it was particularly how they were trying to make her responsible when it's actually the accountants of her husband who should have been more responsible and had more of a how shall I say, responsibility to be on top of what her husband was doing. They were the accountants. So anyway, Brendan Sullivan, he's involved in that. But, everybody in this town, everybody.
The reason how this involves Liberty University is that during the Iran-Contra scandal, as the email goes on, a man named Sun Myung Moon, a North Korean evangelical cult leader, assisted the CIA in its so-called anti-communist efforts. That's how they billed what they were doing during the Iran-Contra scandal in Central America. He used his logistics network through the churches to aid the Contras through his Unification Church. He connected and their connected organizations like CAUSA, and he also ran PR for the Reagan administration regarding U.S.'s involvement in Central America through his newspaper, The Washington Times. Okay, so what's important is that this Sun Myung Moon later would bail Liberty University out. The person in the email said,
and this Randall Casseday was the director of HR of the Washington Times when he was arrested. And in fact, one of the points that I want to see him in court on, it's not just because oh my Lord, I'm headed towards 63 years old. I have 2 children. I know what a naked man looks like, and nobody's going to intimidate. You can walk around, I'm going to be like, okay, big fucking deal. Really, no big deal. So anyway, but what I really want to see him in court, and he's going to have to explain it under the U.S. Constitution, because we had this discussion. He said, I know that this at will, they hire you at will, and this means they can fire you. Any of your employers can fire you for any reason. And everybody's going, I'm like, this is like against the U.S. Constitution in so many different ways, and illegal in so many different ways. And he said, oh no, it's legal. I'm an HR director. I know it's legal because I was an HR director. At that time, I didn't realize who, and I was like, you gotta be kidding me. So I want him to explain in court. This is really, really what I want to see him in court about, rather than just showing me his, is explain to me how this is legal under the U.S. Constitution and human rights conventions, civil rights legislations. Bring it on. Bring it on. Assholes.
Roughly, the amount was $20 to $40 million in the mid-1990s. Now, I find it extremely interesting. This person wrote to me, I find it extremely interesting that the same evangelical cult leader who worked with federal agencies and profited from the Iran-Contra scandal also financially rescued Liberty University, and how Liberty University might be connected to the drug smuggling military base. He's referring to Fort Huachuca. That was the reason he sent the email discussing Fort Huachuca. Interesting indeed, I would say, because we've got a story about the feds, smuggling, Christianity, Israel, South Korea. Did all that actually happen? Yeah, that it did actually happen. And the Washington Post did a fantastic article breaking down what became known as the Moon Cult, in an article that they published in 1997 as that cult was beginning to fade, or I guess their power.
Yeah, but wait a second. The Washington Post first, there's Katharine Graham, who her husband committed suicide. This is the 70s. She's the Capote Swan. So ever since we've got to go back to her and what she did, what the Washington Post has been doing since the 1970s, because they had a lot of CIA ops in there. All of the press has had that. Now, my big beef with the Washington Post is not just Katharine Graham, dating back to the 70s, but Walter Pincus. Now, Walter Pincus, he's a big wig over there. Started in the 70s. He's retired now, but he was like foreign policy and stuff. So I rented a room for him when I first came to D.C. to work for Senator Johnston in April of 1981, just for a month. So when my case started in Spain, I called him because I knew, I was trying to get the press. I went to CNN, Madrid. They just ignored me. I want to see them in court. All of this stuff is being covered up by the journalists. The podcasts are just jumping on the bandwagon. So anyway, there's Walter Pincus. Unfortunately, I think him and his wife, because I actually spoke with his wife a few times that I called his house. You talk about your little piece of work. She's all of the, See, these women, they're psychopaths. Whether it be, what was her name? Ann Pincus, Ethel Kennedy, Jackie Kennedy, Carrie Kennedy, all of these women. It's the women who are behind all of this.
Or was beginning to fade here in America. And it's stunning because if you close your eyes and imagine, you start to see Turning Point USA and Turning Point USA Faith. Everything that I've been describing, I kept saying from the very beginning, what went rotten at Turning Point USA was this faith push. I've been telling you, and I'm going to show you that these Egyptian planes, I've showed you in part, were tracking Turning Point USA Faith, these pastors, okay? What's going on with these quote-unquote Egyptian planes that happen to look like they're going into Gaza, actually? So I'm going to read you parts of this article regarding the Reverend Sun Moon, his unification church. He declared himself, just so you know, a messiah. So when we start to see how it feels like they were trying to establish Charlie as a messianic figure, and it's all become somehow about money, they don't actually care about Charlie. It's like, how much money can we make? We're going to put the tent up. We're going to make it people just, here's the bloody mic. We're putting it in a thing. It feels like I said a seance.
And all the podcasters for the past 4 months now, I'm sorry, they're no different than you know, TPUSA that they're criticizing, or the journalists who they are supposedly replacing in order to how should I say, expose the truth. Truth tellers. They're all truth tellers, but no, they're propagandists.
I want you to imagine that as I tell you about what Sun Moon's Unification Church accomplished in America, rather. And yes, attached to the Iran-Contra affair and Israel and pumping money into Liberty University. Okay, now it tells us that their Unification Church was faltering as a religion in the United States, but it still remains a robust, diverse business. Again, this is 1997, especially in the Washington area, where the movement controls more than $300 million in commercial, political, and cultural enterprises. It tells us that the organization's owned or sponsored by Moon and his inner circle of Korean and American followers holds properties stretching from Prince George to Fairfax County, according to corporate property and court records. This vast and bewildering multinational could be called Moon Inc. It is a sprawling collection of churches, nonprofit foundations, and for-profit holding companies. In the Washington area, the Unification Church's investment is an important cog in a global machine that Moon uses to boost his credibility, spread his spiritual doctrine, and win political influence, according to current and former church members. As the unification movement evolved from selling roses on street corners to acquiring control of a nationwide cable channel, the nation's capital became the epicenter of Moon's U.S. holdings. Those include the Washington Times newspaper, a video production firm, a stately old church, once the pride of the Mormons along 16th Street Northwest, Washington area property owned by the church, its affiliated companies or senior church officials, is worth more than $200 million, according to property and corporate records. A lot of property. I was telling you, Turning Point's getting into real estate. It's very interesting. They're getting into real estate, according to a tip that I have, because they're going to teach young conservatives how to buy houses, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, see, this is the thing. Washington it started in 1790 in order to house the American government, to serve the American people. It was not made so the Moonies could come and speculate on real estate and make tons of money, or Dwight Schrute with Northern Virginia homes. He comes into that. Or George Washington University, my alma mater. Everybody in this town has known for decades that the school, they're into real estate. They don't give a shit about education. I mean, I've got lawsuits against at least six departments. Matt LeBlanc, when he was president, he got a letter from me. We had a discussion when he came into Calari Taverna, where I was working at the time, where one of the managers, again, a pedophile, registered pedophile, the owner, a Greek man, who also, well, Maybe he's not a pedophile, but he is definitely a zipper problem asshole. I mean, the other manager that they had in there, well, after Rita, the Greek woman left, it was a black Latino woman, and we couldn't understand. We said that woman's never worked in a restaurant before in her life. And when we saw her almost sitting on the lap of the owner when he came down from New York, all of us ladies were like, okay, we got it. We understand. She slept with him. So you got a pedophile and a whore running his restaurant. That's, of course, why it no longer exists. Now I'm sick and tired. All over Washington, we got pedophiles, we've got, rapists, we've got these sexual harassment in every place I'm working. But no, the lawyers are too busy with their lobbying firms making too much money. Swamp needs to be drained. And none of these podcasters or Candace Owens, unfortunately, are working towards that.
Tyler Boyer leading the charge. Washington will be the focus of the worldwide unification movement this week as Moon-sponsored organizations are going to hold a series of academic conferences and the World Sports and Culture Festival, culminating Saturday with a mass wedding at RFK Stadium. The South Korean self-declared messiah has grown increasingly vehement within the unification movement. Moon's spiritual and business ventures are viewed as a part of a unified whole. Quote, ideas without...
Oh, see, so this was, wait a second, this was they had 3.6 million couples married? RFK Stadium. But this is the 70s, so that would have been before Randall Casseday, which was in 82. Huh.
The money to back them up.
But see, all of these, I don't care if it's these religious nonprofits or the secular nonprofits, they're all playing the same game. Oh God, I got somebody here. Here, let's...
Are just dreams, end quote, said Richard Rubenstein, the president of the movement-controlled University of Bridgeport. The corporate section is understood to be the engine that funds the mission of the church. I am telling you, this is like almost verbatim if you were to read statements about Turning Point USA and their spinoffs. We need the money to do the work. This is what it's going to be the 501c3, the 501c4, and Turning Point Action. This is where it's all going to come together. It goes on to tell us that since the 1970s, Moon has gained his highest profile in this country, not with his church, but with the Times, the 100,000 circulation daily that competes with the Washington Post. But the paper has become an established voice of conservative America. Beyond the Times, Moon-affiliated entities are linked by a complex web of interlocking directorships and nurtured by a seemingly endless flow of cash from the Far East. That has enabled them to buy new businesses and even help to bail out Reverend Jerry Falwell's founding Liberty University. Again, this is 1997. Executives of unification-related entities have acknowledged that money from Japan and Korea are fueling their U.S. operations. But the magnitude and the mechanism of those payments, as well as their exact sources, have eluded investigators on 3 continents over the past 3 decades. Let me slow that down for you. So you're telling me we have a faith-based organization with a political arm that is stretched into evangelical churches, that's working with Israel and helping the CIA traffic arms at one point through churches and the presence of their church. And now you're telling me that when they started looking into where this money was coming from, it's actually eluding them how the money is coming from Japan and Korea. And wasn't that Charlie's last trip? Bizarrely, he went to Korea. We're going to get to that. And then after he went to Korea and met with the pastor, that pastor got arrested. Again, we're going to get to that. And then after he went to Korea, he went to Japan. I'm just saying the past is feeling like it's a bit prologue. Why was Charlie going to a build-up? What does Charlie Kirk have to do with Korea? Turning Point Faith pushing you into Korea. A lot going on in South Korea, by the way. Like, LOL, when I saw this article about how they suddenly established a Holocaust museum, I was like, there goes the neighborhood. Do we have that article? Yeah. South Korean Christian Zionists opened the country's first Holocaust museum. I should add that to my timeline because there goes the neighborhood. We're coming. You can't question anything. We're going to call you Hitler. Sorry, South Korea. You're so cooked. Okay. Anyways, jumping back into this article before I show you what happened when Charlie went to Korea and a pastor then got arrested. It tells us that Moon Inc. Sorry, let me flip this. Wrong side. Moon's businesses exist for several purposes. Church leaders and critics agree. To employ members, to gain influence in industries that Moon considers crucial, and to support Moon's spiritual and political agenda. Sometimes that support is direct, as when Moon's nonprofit organizations contribute to conservative political and social causes with financial donations, staff, and publicity. And sometimes it's indirect, as when Moon-sponsored groups stage academic, religious, and cultural conferences, inviting professors, clergy, media executives, and other opinion shapers to meetings, all expenses paid. Oh, that reminds me of Turning Point USA Faith. I told you they were embarking on this pastor summit. They were going to bring all of these Christian Zionist influencers, training. They had a pastor summit led by Rob McCoy, as I showed you that. Sean Foyt, they were going to lead this up, pumping in money. This is what was growing. Turning Point Faith, which was spun out of Liberty University. So this feels especially relevant. It goes on to say that they'll have a conference on the essence of religious founders. This is a guy who was an ex-Catholic priest. His name was Borderland. He says, quote, they'll have a conference on the essence of religious founders like Buddha, Jesus. And then Moon gets a room full of academics to sit there. He gets his picture taken with them. He gets credibility. They get to have their conference. It's all very messy, end quote. Borderland, like many people who have received some of Moon's generous bounty, has never been able to figure out the blizzard of organizations that make up Moon Inc. He says, quote, my money is never from the church itself. It's always the international something or another. That's interesting because when we started looking into Operation Mocking Bastard, we had that lead that it was coming from one of these international fellowships or whatever, ICJF, I don't remember what it was. Point is like there's all these international fellowship of Christians and Jews, and they're pumping money with an explicit purpose. In fact, you'll be very proud to know that when I worked at the Daily Wire, they used to bring me companies like ad reads, and they brought me the International Fellowship of Christian and Jews to read ads for. And so I said to my producer at the time, I said, well, what is this actually? Let's pull it up. Okay, because I was allowed to decline an ad read if I had a moral, if I felt like I was morally averse to it. And so I pulled up the website, and it was basically, here's what you Christians can do for Jews. And I said, this doesn't feel like a fellowship, so no. I'm a Christian. I'm going to get to work. We have tons of issues. They're not saying what they're going to do in the Congo, or how they're going to help with what's going on all around the world, Armenia. So why would I just read ads for it? There's something going on with that organization, by the way. They've got their hands in a lot. Anyways, that's how they were doing this. They were paying this guy, but it wasn't actually coming from Moon's church. It was coming from international something or another. That's how you hide the money. It goes on to read on.
As I say, all the nonprofits are playing this same game. I think it's the deep state number 8, but it's Foxcroft. This gets into the Mellon family and the Mars candy bars and the Mars candy family who are a Foxcroft and how they're playing these games. I mean, hell, I even have a lawsuit against the Walton family of Walmart and Ken Crippa. They're one of the wealthiest families in the world, and I can take all of their assets. Honor the way that this has been set up by everybody. You want to fuck with me? I'll fuck with you.
One court
Told everybody that in 2008. I'm not a stupid idiot bimbo like the lawyers and everybody in Spain and everybody in this government thinks I am. I mean, this is ridiculous. I'm one of the smartest students Foxcroft ever had, and amongst the smartest of GW, and I can barely keep a roof over my head with minimum wage jobs, while all of these assholes in this city amass fortunes, $1 million homes, $1 million retirement plans, and all sorts of stuff. Gotta drain the swamp. Drain it.
Order, the International Coalition for Religious Freedom, the group that Bordelon said signs his checks these days, shares a suite with the Martial Arts Federation for World Peace and a company called Washington Times Aviation. The only person in the suite on a recent visit was a Korean man who spoke little English, saying, "I am Martial Arts Federation. I work for father." Okay. Then tells us that Moon's Washington enterprises range from a ballet academy to an architectural molding company to magazines. They said, quote, "The idea was that we'd be like Disney, controlling all kinds of media, working on behalf of God." Always, always.
Yeah.
Paquette, whose job gave him access to financial information about several church-related businesses, said he believed that virtually none of the unification's U.S. operations is profitable. You have all these businesses and none of them are profitable? Where's the money coming from? How's that work, actually? Yeah, and isn't it starting to sound like the Seven Mountain Mandate, these pastors? We got
all these businesses that aren't profitable, yet GDP keeps on growing and growing and growing. All of these people all of these economists, GDP, quantitative easing, central banks, all of them need to be brought into court and have their assets seized and restore some sanity and integrity into the banking systems and the financial markets.
To have an interest in culturally here and there. We've got to be everywhere. And Turning Point's going to help us get there. It's very interesting. Where is the money coming from and where is it going was one of Charlie Kirk's last questions. Before he was assassinated, he established Doge to determine that answer. They decided to investigate Moon Organization in 1978. In 1978, a congressional investigation into the Moon Organization concluded that, quote, "The Unification Church and numerous other religious and secular organizations headed by Sun Moon constitute essentially one international organization that moved money freely among its entities." SEC filings show that the cash for Nostalgia, that's one of their companies, comes through a chain of companies that lead to the Unification Church International. It's a vertically integrated operation that is common in Moon's empire. He goes on to tell us, this is my favorite quotation, because it's just so mega church vibes. Like, you find $300,000 behind a sink or a toilet. Tells us, quote, "Rev Moon sent bags of cash, big fat bags, stacks and stacks of hundreds from Korea and Japan to Manhattan Center. The church's recording studio in New York City," Paquette said, "whenever we asked where that money was coming from, the answer was that it came from the Father." Okay. I think we're good on that. I'm sure it did. The wealth of Unification's worldwide economic empire remains a closely guarded secret. Lawrence Ziliox, a private investigator who has studied the church for more than a decade, has concluded from church documents that the Unification Church International, the main holding company for Moon's U.S. businesses, exceeded $500 million in the mid-1980s. Man,
yeah.
Who took...
That's when Randall Casseday got involved with them.
Moon Inc. to the next level. But the church's wealth has always been centered in Asia. A detailed analysis by the Far Eastern Economic Review in 1990 valued the church's land holdings in South Korea alone at more than $1 billion. In recent years, though, several of the Korean companies have lost money, causing business experts there to wonder, like their counterparts in America, where the money comes from. Charlie Kirk, where is the money coming from and where is it going to? Charlie Kirk is in Korea, he's in Japan, and he's being told that he's there for reasons that have to do with the Christian faith being suppressed. And I don't think that's why they had him there, to be honest with you. I don't think that's why they pushed for Charlie to go to Korea and to Tokyo. The long-standing explanation as to where the money comes from, where the money was going to, it is Japan, not Korea, that provides the bulk of the church's wealth, as much as 70%, church observers estimate. They can't get to the bottom of that. We don't know. We don't know the answer to that. Yet despite years of such legal and financial troubles, the unification movement continues to pump hundreds of millions of dollars into existing businesses and new ventures all around the world. It's just a bottomless pit of money. Nobody knows where it's coming from. According to business analysts and academics who study the church, Moon's most ambitious foray into the political process in recent years was the American Freedom Coalition, a conservative group that built popular support for Colonel Oliver L. North during the Iran-Contra probe. In addition, to about $5 million, unificationists provided the personnel that gave the coalition its grassroots strength. Former church members said, yes, of course, we got to be able to help the colonels, got to have a military angle here. And so that has been their most ambitious, building something that actually helped the Iran-Contra people that were implicated. Tells us also in 1995, the Women's Federation made another donation. It's another arm of his church, a donation that illustrates how Moon supports his fellow conservatives. It gave $3.5 million grant to the Christian Heritage Foundation, which later brought a portion of Liberty University's debt, rescuing Reverend Jerry Falwell's Lynchburg, Virginia religious school from the brink of bankruptcy. The Post has learned of more recent and direct financial support from Moon to Falwell. Last year, New World Communications, which is a parent company of the money-losing Washington Times, lent $400,000 into Liberty at a 6% interest, according to the promissory note. So the point of all of this is that to get money, it's a web. It's a financial web that took one investigator 10 years to still not figure out how all of this money is happening. And that's what it feels like Turning Point USA has become, a very complex financial web where money is coming in and money is going out and every dollar is being spent and money is going back to certain people and there are kickbacks. And it feels like very sophisticated money laundering. When I read what happened with Moon Inc. and I compare it to what seems to be happening at Turning Point USA, it feels like the company grew bigger than Charlie Kirk. And then they were ready to go to the next level. Like maybe they were presented with an opportunity to become Moon Inc. And maybe Charlie said no. Maybe. Anyways, back to Korea. Yeah, Charlie's last trip. He went to go meet with a pastor. And Charlie, the way it was pitched to Charlie was that they were suffering, Christians are suffering in Korea because they want to get engaged into politics and Christians want to vote what Christians are concerned about. But again, I don't think that's why the McCoys were pushing for Charlie to go to Korea because, they just got a Holocaust museum. And I don't think much Holocaust stuff happened in Korea. Feels like maybe Korea's getting infiltrated like America got infiltrated. I mean, you can guess how extensive the infiltration is by guessing how extensive the Holocaust education is what I would say. That's kind of the lesson that I'm looking back and I'm going, it's kind of weird. We didn't learn about this at school. We had to learn about that. Yeah. You have to establish yourself as the ultimate victims before you do the ultimate oppressing vibes. I don't know. Anyways, I'll let you read about, or rather see, this is the headline from the Korean Herald, how pro-Yoon pastor was arrested for breaking election law. He was arrested on September 9th. Now, to remind you, Charlie was there on the 4th and the 5th for the Build Up Korea conference. So days later, he got arrested. And the rhetoric that he was using is interesting. It's very interesting. Take a look at this news clip. And sorry, Skylar.
Turning overseas, we've been following the case of South Korean pastor Yoon Bo-sun. His imprisonment has raised concerns about religious freedom in South Korea. The case recently gained more attention when his son Chance spoke in Arizona at Turning Point USA's AmFest. Asia correspondent Lucille Toulousan spoke with him following that appearance,
where he spoke about his father's case. Pastor Yoon Bo-sun remains jailed in South Korea on election law charges and has drawn attention from the Korean administration for his stance on biblical truths.
So firstly, I would like to thank CBN News for covering my father's news when it was mostly needed. And that's when I believe a lot of Christians in the States especially starting to pick up my father's story. I think this is a great opportunity for Americans themselves to be able to realize what's at stake and what we are to do as brothers and sisters in Christ.
As a show of support, the organization Advocates for Faith and Freedom has launched a petition for a fair legal process in Pastor Son's case. Support from Americans is also growing. That includes the late Charlie Kirk, who met Pastor Son in Seoul at a conference.
My father was able to share what's happening in Korea recently, especially to the Christian leaders, including himself, and also the possibility that my father would could get arrested. And in fact, my father got arrested 2 days after he met Charlie. Charlie made sure that he will use his platform and his voice to let the whole world and America know that this is happening in South Korea. And this was important for him because it was an example of what would happen if we don't speak for biblical truth.
So just so you know, why was he arrested? Well, he was accused of violating the Public Official Election Act and the Local Education Autonomy Act prior to attending a court hearing on Monday on the warrant for his arrest. The conservative pastor participated in a protest that was held by Christian groups in which he said that the state is, quote, the same as Hitler and the Nazis, end quote. And his arrest would be a confirmation of his claim, according to this article. He shouted the words that Lee Jae-myung has to die for Korea to live. Fighting Nazis, guys. Everybody everywhere is fighting Nazis all the time. It's just the only thing that's ever happened in the history of the world is Nazis. And obviously, if you don't allow this museum to come in and allow Christians to have a leg here, Christians, well then obviously the Holocaust is going to happen again. I think it's pretty sound. This all feels right to me. If I had to today give you my best guess as to why Charlie Kirk was assassinated, it's because an offer came to him to become the next Moon, to turn Turning Point, which is already a $100 million organization, into a multi-billion-dollar organization, like in real estate and purchasing businesses and doing all sorts of things, working with the military and the top politicians in the world. And you just turn the other way. Don't ask questions about where the money's coming from or how you're getting the money. Just keep things afloat and keep poisoning the minds of the youth. And keep saying that you're doing all this in the name of the Lord. Because, why not? If Moon could help the CIA traffic in the name of the Lord, why couldn't Charlie Kirk's organization do that?
Yeah, so we're going to stop there. So I'll be getting into, as you can see from the background, in fact, I have been starting some presentations on the satanic forces, and then last night I saw about the moons. I was like, okay. So there we go. That's for today.